The clock on the mantel ticked. I watched the second hand sweep past the 12, then the 1, then the 2. My son was still talking, but I'd stopped listening. Something about the truck. Something about how I never gave him anything real. The turkey was getting cold on my plate. Linda had used the good china, the set her mother gave us 40 years ago. I'd carved the bird myself, the way I always did. Now the knife sat next to my hand, the blade smeared with grease. Ethan's wife, Jen, stared at her napkin. My grandson, 3 years old, was drawing circles in his mashed potatoes with a spoon. He didn't look up. "You hear me, Dad?" Ethan leaned forward. His face was red, the way it got when he'd been drinking. I could smell it on him. Whiskey, cheap stuff, the kind I used to drink before I quit. I set my fork down. The sound was louder than I expected. "I said you're already dead," he repeated. "You just don't know it yet." Linda's hand went to her mouth. Jen stopped breathing. The boy kept drawing. I didn't answer. I just looked at the keys in my pocket. They were still warm from the afternoon sun. I'd had a second set made last week, after the lawyer told me to keep the title. I didn't know why I did it. Maybe I always knew this day would come. I stood up. "Dinner's over." Ethan laughed. "Where are you going, old man? Going to cry in the bathroom?" I didn't tell him. I walked to the front door, grabbed my jacket off the hook, and stepped outside. The cold hit me hard. November in Indiana, the kind of cold that settles in your bones. The porch light flickered. The lawn was scattered with dry leaves, and the neighbor's dog was barking somewhere down the street. I got in my truck. The engine turned over smooth. I sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, breathing. The air smelled like diesel and old coffee. I felt light, like I was finally doing something right. I drove toward Ethan's house. It was 2 miles away, a split level with a cracked driveway and a basketball hoop that hadn't been used in years. I knew the route by heart. I'd driven it 1,000 times, picking him up from school, dropping him off at practice, bringing him home after he'd had too much to drink in high school. The truck was parked in his driveway. White, black rims, Ford F450 Limited. I'd bought it new last year, paid cash. He'd asked for it. "Dad, I need a truck for work." He didn't have work. He hadn't had a steady job in 3 years. I pulled up behind it, killed my engine, and got out. The street was quiet. No one was watching. I walked to the driver's side of his truck and tried the door. Locked. I pulled out the spare key. It slid into the lock like it belonged there. The door opened with a soft click. I sat in his seat. The cabin smelled like him. Cigarettes, fast food, something sour. The floorboard was littered with receipts and empty cups. I adjusted the rearview mirror and saw a gym bag in the back seat. Heavy, from the look of it. I didn't open it. I figured it was his workout stuff. I didn't care. I started the engine. It roared to life, and I backed out of the driveway, slow, careful, like I was taking something fragile. I drove to my house. It took 3 minutes. I parked the truck next to mine, shut it off, and sat there in the dark. The keys were cold now. My phone buzzed. "Linda." I ignored it. Then another buzz. "Ethan." I let it ring. I looked at the truck. It was still warm, the hood ticking as it cooled. I thought about the look on his face when he'd called me dead. I thought about the way my grandson had stared at his father like he was a stranger. I got out and walked to the back seat. I opened the door and grabbed the gym bag. It was heavier than I expected. I unzipped it. It wasn't gym clothes. I stared at the contents for a long time. Then I zipped it back up and put it in my own truck. I locked both doors and went inside. Linda was waiting in the kitchen. She had her arms crossed and her eyes were red. "Where is it?" she asked. "Safe," I said. She didn't ask again. She just turned and walked upstairs. I sat at the kitchen table and watched the clock tick. The second hand swept past the 12, then the 1, then the 2. My phone buzzed again. "Ethan." I answered. "Where's my truck?" His voice was shaking, not with anger, with fear. "I have it," I said. "You can't do that. That's theft." It's my name on the title, Ethan. It's my truck. Silence. Then he said, "You don't understand." Then explain it to me. He didn't answer. The line went dead. I set the phone down and looked at the gym bag on the kitchen floor. I knew what was inside. I knew what he'd been doing. And I knew that taking the truck wasn't punishment. It was the only thing I could do to keep him alive. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark and waited for the sun to come up. And when it did, I drove to the lawyer's office before anyone else was awake. I was in the garage when my phone rang. The sun hadn't come up yet. I'd been sitting in the dark for 2 hours, staring at the gym bag on the passenger seat. I knew what was inside. I'd seen it last night, but I didn't move it. I didn't call the police. I just sat there, breathing in the cold air, trying to figure out my next move. The phone buzzed again, Ethan's name on the screen. I let it ring 3 times. Then I answered. "Where's my truck?" His voice was ragged. He hadn't slept either. "I have it," I said. "Bring it back. Come get it." Silence. Then he laughed. It was a bitter sound, like he'd been expecting this. "You think this is a game, Dad? You think you can just take my truck and I'll crawl back to you?" "It's my truck," I said. "My name on the title. My money that paid for it." "Your money," he spit the words. "You think that makes you a father?" I didn't answer. I just watched my breath fog in the cold air. "Listen," he said, and his voice changed. Softer, almost pleading. "I need that truck. I need it today." "Why?" "None of your business." "Then it's my business now." The line went quiet. I could hear him breathing. Then I heard another sound, a phone buzzing in the background. His other line. "Hold on," he said. I heard him answer. I couldn't make out the words, but I heard the tone of his voice change. It went from anger to something else, something I'd never heard from him before. Fear. He came back on the line. "I have to go." "Who was that?" "None of your business." "JC?" The silence told me everything. "How do you know that name?" he asked. "Who is he, Ethan? Stay out of my life." Too late for that. He hung up. I sat there for a long time, holding the phone in my hand. The garage was cold. My fingers were numb, but I didn't move. The gym bag was still on the passenger seat. I reached over and unzipped it again, just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't. There were 3 bundles wrapped in plastic, white powder, and a gun, a small black pistol tucked into the side pocket. I zipped it back up and got out of the truck. I walked into the house and put the coffee on. Linda came down 20 minutes later. She was still in her bathrobe. Her hair was a mess. She looked at me like she was trying to figure out who I was. "Did you sleep?" she asked. "No." "Where's the truck?" "Safe." She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat across from me. She didn't say anything. She just watched me. The phone rang again. "Ethan." I let it ring. "Aren't you going to answer?" she asked. "No. It's your son." "I know." The ringing stopped. Then it started again, different ringtone, Ethan's other line. I picked it up. "What?" "Dad." His voice was different now, shaky. "I need you to bring the truck back. Tell me why." "I can't." "Then no. Please." That word stopped me. Ethan never said please. Not once in his entire life. "Who's JC?" I asked again. "I can't tell you." "Then I can't help you." "Dad, if you don't bring that truck back, I'm dead." I closed my eyes. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. But I already knew that. I'd known it since I found the gym bag. "The truck is gone," I said. "You can't use it." "Then I'm dead." "Not if you come home." "Home," he laughed. "You think I can just come home?" "Yes." "You don't understand. They're coming for me. They're coming tonight." "Who?" "People. Bad people. And if they don't find the truck, they'll find me." I looked at the gym bag. I looked at Linda. She was watching me with wide eyes. "Come home," I said again. "We'll figure it out." "Figure it out?" His voice cracked. You can't figure this out. You can't fix this with money. You can't fix this at all. Then let me try. Silence. Then I heard a sound. A car door slamming. Voices in the background. I have to go, he said. Ethan, tell Mum I love her. The line went dead. I sat there with the phone in my hand. Linda was staring at me. What happened? She asked. I didn't answer. I just looked at the phone. Then it rang again. But this time the caller ID was different. JC. I picked it up. Let me talk to my son. The voice on the other end was calm. Too calm. You're the father. Let me talk to him. Your son owes us money. How much? 42,000. I didn't flinch. I'll pay it. Too late. The price went up. What's the new price? His life. The line went dead. I set the phone down. Linda was still watching me. Her face was pale. Frank, she said, what's going on? I looked at her. I looked at the gym bag. I looked at the phone. Then I heard it. A car door slamming outside. Footsteps on the driveway. If to bag. I stood up. Stay here, I said. Frank, stay here. I walked to the front door. The footsteps were getting closer. I opened the door. Ethan was standing on the porch. His face was bruised. His hands were shaking. And behind him, 2 men in a black car were watching the house. I sat on the tailgate of the truck in my driveway. The engine was still warm. The smell of Ethan's cologne hung in the cab. I didn't want to go inside yet. Linda would be waiting. She'd have that look on her face, the one that said she was choosing sides without saying a word. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the second set of keys. The metal was cold now. I'd had them made 3 weeks ago, the day after the lawyer told me to keep the title in my name. I told myself it was just good sense, a father's right to protect his assets. But I knew better. The truck was a 2023 Ford F450 Limited, white with black rims. I'd bought it new last year, full cash, $47,000. I'd handed the keys to Ethan on his birthday and watched his face light up for the first time in years. I thought it would change things. It didn't. I walked around to the back of the truck and opened the tailgate. The bed was clean. Ethan always kept it clean. That was one thing I taught him right. Take care of what you have. I remembered the day I taught him to drive. He was 16. We were in my old pickup, a 1998 Ford Ranger with a cracked windshield and a bench seat. He was nervous, gripping the wheel too tight. I told him to relax, to feel the road. He crashed into a mailbox. I didn't yell. I just got out, picked up the pieces, and handed them to the neighbor. The neighbor laughed. Ethan didn't. He sat in the truck with his head down, waiting for me to be angry. I wasn't angry. I was just tired. That was the first time I realized I didn't know how to talk to him. I could build a house from the foundation up. I could fix a transmission with a wrench and a prayer. But I couldn't find the words to tell my son that I loved him. So I gave him things. The playset in the backyard. I built that when he was 4. Took me 3 weekends. I poured concrete footings, stained the wood, put a little roof on the fort. He played on it every day for a year. Then he stopped. I asked him why once. He said it was boring. I never built him anything again. I climbed into the truck and sat in the driver's seat. The dashboard glowed blue. The GPS tracker was still on. I pulled up the history on my phone. The truck had been to some bad neighborhoods, late at night, early in the morning, places I wouldn't go without a gun. I'd noticed it before. I'd told myself it was just Ethan hanging out with friends. But the lawyer's words came back to me. That truck has been sighted in some bad neighborhoods at night. I should have asked. I should have said something. But I didn't. Because if I asked, I'd have to hear the answer, and I wasn't ready for that. I put the phone down and looked at the passenger seat. There was a photograph wedged between the seat and the console. I pulled it out. It was Ethan. He was maybe 7 years old. He was standing in front of the playset, smiling. His front tooth was missing. His hair was a mess. He had a red popsicle stain on his shirt. I remembered that day. I'd just finished the playset. I called him outside to see it. He ran out barefoot, jumped on the slide and laughed. I took the picture with a disposable camera. I kept it in my wallet for years. I didn't know he still had it. I stared at the photograph for a long time. The smile, the missing tooth, the way his eyes looked at me like I was the best thing in the world. When did that stop? When did he start looking at me like I was the enemy? I set the photograph on the dashboard. I didn't put it back. I couldn't. The truck's engine ticked as it cooled. The sun was almost down. The air smelled like dry leaves and wood smoke. I thought about selling the truck. I could get 40 grand for it, maybe more. Use the money to pay off the last of the mortgage. Give Linda some peace of mind. But that felt like giving up. If I sold it, I was admitting that I'd failed, that the truck was a mistake, that my son was lost. And I wasn't ready to admit that. I started the engine. The GPS tracker pinged. I pulled up the history again and looked at the most recent location. It was a warehouse on the south side. 3 nights ago, 2 in the morning. I didn't know what he was doing there, but I knew it wasn't good. I put the truck in gear and drove toward the house. The photograph sat on the dashboard, watching me. When I pulled into the driveway, Linda was standing at the front door. She had her arms crossed. Her face was pale. "You took it," she said. I nodded. "Where is it?" "In the driveway." She looked past me at the truck. Then she looked at me. Her eyes were wet. "Frank," she said, "you don't know what you've done." I didn't answer. I just walked past her into the house. But I could still see the photograph in my mind. That smile, that missing tooth. And I felt a pang of guilt so sharp it stopped me in the hallway. The lawyer's office smelled like old paper and coffee. I'd been there maybe 3 times in my life. Once to sign the will, once to dispute a lien on a job site, and now this. Sitting across from me, a man in his 50s named Richard Crane. He'd handled my affairs for 15 years, never asked personal questions, kept things professional. I liked that about him. I slid the keys across his desk. "I want to repossess my son's truck." He didn't blink. He just picked up the keys and turned them over in his hand. "You have the original title. Filed at the DMV. My name's on it. You gave him the truck 2 years ago. I didn't give it to him. I let him use it." Richard nodded slowly. He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. "You understand what this means? He's going to be angry." "He's already angry. I'm just giving him a reason." He flipped through the pages. "The truck's been cited in some places you might not like." I leaned forward. "What places?" He hesitated. "There's a warehouse on the south side, near the industrial district. My son's a cop. He mentioned seeing a white F-450 there a few times, late at night." I didn't say anything. "I'm not saying your son's involved in anything illegal. I'm just saying you should know where your property's been." I took the folder from his hands. Inside was the title transfer document, a copy of the registration, and a small envelope. I opened it. A GPS tracker report, 3 months of locations, most of them normal. Ethan's house, the grocery store, a gym, but there were others, places I didn't recognize, streets I'd never heard of. "How did you get this?" "I installed it when you bought the truck. Standard procedure for financed vehicles. I forgot to tell you." I stared at the report. The warehouse on the south side appeared 7 times. Each entry was between midnight and 3 a.m. Richard cleared his throat. "Frank, I've known you for a long time, so I'll say this once. If there's something going on with your son, taking the truck might not be enough." "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe you should ask him what he's doing at a warehouse at 2 in the morning." I folded the report and put it back in the envelope. "I'll handle it." He nodded. "The truck's legally yours. You have every right to take possession. But I'd be careful." "Careful about what?" "Careful about what you find." I stood up, shook his hand, walked out of his office into the cold November air. The sky was grey. The leaves were brown. And somewhere in this city, my son was doing things I didn't understand. I got in my own truck, the old F-150, not the white one, and sat there for a long time. The envelope sat on the passenger seat. I could feel it watching me. I thought about calling Linda, telling her what I'd found, but I didn't. I wanted to see for myself first. I pulled up the GPS app on my phone. The tracker was still active. I could see the white F-450 parked in Ethan's driveway. He was home. I started the engine and drove. The whole way, I kept thinking about what Richard said, about the warehouse, about being careful. I told myself it was nothing, a late-night poker game, a friend's house, anything but what I was afraid of. But I knew better. When I got to Ethan's neighborhood, I parked a block away. The white truck was sitting in the driveway. I could see a light on in the living room. A shadow moved behind the curtain. I sat there for 10 minutes. Then I saw him. Ethan came out the front door. He was wearing a jacket and carrying a duffel bag. He got in the truck and backed out of the driveway. I followed him. We drove through the suburbs, past the high school, past the gas station where I used to buy him ice cream when he was a kid, past everything we used to be. He turned onto a dark road. I knew where we were going. The warehouse. I stayed far enough back that he wouldn't see me. The GPS helped. I knew his route before he did. 20 minutes later, he pulled into a gravel lot next to a concrete building with no signs. The lights were off. The only sound was the wind. I parked 100 yards away and watched. Ethan got out of the truck. He looked around. Then he opened the back door of the warehouse and went inside. I waited. 15 minutes. 30. The cold seeped through my jacket. Then the door opened again. Ethan came out. He was carrying something. A box. He put it in the truck bed and covered it with a tarp. He drove away. I didn't follow him. I just sat there, staring at the warehouse, feeling the weight of the GPS report in my pocket. When I got home, Linda was in the kitchen. She looked at me and asked where I'd been. I didn't tell her. I just sat down at the table and stared at the wall. The clock ticked. The second hand swept past the 12, then the 1, then the 2. And I knew that Richard was right. I had to be careful, because what I found inside that warehouse wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. I sat in the kitchen with the duffel bag hidden in the garage, and the weight of what I'd done pressing down on my chest. The coffee had gone cold. I didn't care. Linda came downstairs at 9. She looked at me, then at the empty chair across from her. She didn't sit. "He called," she said. "Ethan, he's coming over." I nodded. "He's scared, Frank. I've never heard him like that." I didn't answer. I couldn't tell her about the storage unit. Not yet. Not until I knew what I was going to do. The doorbell rang at 9:15. Linda got it before I could stand up. Ethan walked in like he owned the place. His face was red, his hands shaking. He looked at me sitting at the table, and his eyes went wild. "Where is it?" I didn't answer. "The bag, Dad. Where did you put it?" Linda looked between us. Her face was pale. "What bag?" Ethan ignored her. He walked toward me, his fists clenched. "You don't understand. Those people, they're going to kill me. You took their money. You took their product. They think I talked." I stood up slowly. "I took it because you're my son. Then give it back." "I can't." He laughed. It was a hollow sound. "You can't. Or you won't. Both." He stepped closer. I could smell the sweat on him. "You've ruined everything I was trying to fix. By running drugs." The words hung in the air. Linda made a sound like she'd been hit. Ethan's face went white. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know about the warehouse. I know about JC Logistics. I know about the $42,000 you owe." He stared at me. His mouth opened, then closed. For a second, he looked like a child again, lost and scared. Then the anger came back. "You went through my things, you tracked my truck, you broke into a storage unit. That's illegal. So is what you were doing." Linda stepped between us. "Stop it, both of you." She turned to Ethan. Is it true? The drugs? He didn't answer. He just looked at the floor. Oh, Ethan. Her voice cracked. What have you done? I was trying to fix it, he said. The gambling, the debt. I was trying to make it right. By making it worse. He didn't answer. Linda turned to me. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. You found the bag. You took it. What are you going to do now? I looked at her. For the first time in years, I saw something in her eyes that I hadn't seen in a long time. She was looking at me like she trusted me. I'm going to protect him, I said. Ethan laughed again. Protect me? You took the only thing keeping me alive. I took the thing that was going to get you killed. He shook his head. You don't understand. They're not going to stop. They're going to come for me. For Mum. For Sarah and the boy. I felt the words hit me like a punch. My grandson. 3 years old. I hadn't thought about that. I'll handle it, I said. How? You're an old man with a bad lung. I didn't answer. I just looked at him. He stared at me for a long moment, then he shook his head. You don't know what you've done. He turned and walked to the door. Linda called after him, but he didn't stop. He opened the door and stepped outside. Then he turned back, his face twisted with anger and fear. You don't know what you've done, he said again, louder this time. Then he slammed the door and was gone. I stood there, listening to his footsteps fade down the driveway. Linda was crying. The clock on the mantel ticked. She wiped her eyes and sat down at the table across from me. Frank, I need to know everything, not the highlights, the whole story. I hesitated. Then I told her about the GPS tracker, the storage unit, the cash and the packages. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, he's in over his head, but you can't give it back. That would just hand him over. I know. So what's your plan? I didn't have one. Not yet. But sitting there, watching her steady herself, I realized something. She wasn't blaming me. She was with me. I'm going to find out who they are, I said, before they find us. She nodded slowly. Then we do it together. The words settled between us like a promise. But even as she said them, I felt the weight of what I'd set in motion. Ethan was out there, alone and desperate. The men who owned that bag were out there too. And I had no idea how much time we had. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from an unknown number. I picked it up. The message was short. You have until noon, then the boy pays. My blood went cold. Linda saw my face. What is it? I showed her. She covered her mouth. They know about the house. About Sarah. I grabbed my keys. I'm moving the bag now. She stood. I'm coming with you. I didn't argue, but as we headed for the garage, I knew, every second I kept that bag, I was putting us all in deeper danger. I looked at the clock, 9:45. The morning was just beginning. And I had just made everything worse. The GPS app on my phone felt heavier than it should. I'd installed it months ago, back when I still trusted my son. Back when I thought the truck was a gift, not a leash. I opened the history and scrolled through the last 2 weeks. The vehicle had been everywhere. Warehouse districts, motel parking lots, a storage unit on the south side. Most trips were between midnight and 3 in the morning. I zoomed in on the storage unit address. Something about it felt wrong. I grabbed my keys and drove over there without telling Linda. The unit was in a row of identical steel doors, number 42. The lock was new, combination style. I didn't have the code, but I didn't need it. I'd taught Ethan how to pick simple locks when he was 15. Turned out, I remembered better than he did. The door rolled up with a metallic groan. Inside was mostly empty, a few boxes, a folding chair, and a duffel bag in the corner. I unzipped it and found bundles of cash, small bills, rubber-banded, maybe $30,000. I stood there for a long time. The air smelled like dust and stale cigarette smoke. I didn't touch the money. I just zipped the bag back up and closed the unit. But I didn't head home. Not yet. The motel address from the GPS log burned in my memory. I drove there instead, 15 minutes through empty streets. The place was a rundown dive on the edge of town, the neon sign flickering between vacancy and no vacancy. Room 12 matched the parking spot where the truck had been logged at 2:47 a.m. 2 nights ago. The door was unlocked. Inside, the room stank of stale beer and desperation. A half-empty bottle of cheap whiskey sat on the nightstand. Under the bed, I found a burner phone, still warm. No fingerprints I could see, but I pocketed it anyway. I left the whiskey. Something told me the phone was more important. On the way home, I called Ethan. He didn't answer. I left a message. We need to talk. Tonight. I drove to his house instead. His car was in the driveway, but the lights were off. I knocked. No answer. I tried the door. Unlocked. Inside, the place was a mess. Dishes piled in the sink, clothes on the floor, a half-eaten sandwich on the coffee table. His toddler's toys were scattered everywhere, but the kid wasn't there. Neither was Ethan's wife. I walked to the bedroom. The closet was open, half empty, suitcases missing. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. I'm not home. Don't look for me. I typed back. Where's your family? No reply. I sat on his couch and stared at the blank TV. The clock on the wall ticked. Second hand sweeping past the 12, then the 1, then the 2. I remembered the storage unit, the cash, the late-night drives, and now the burner phone. I pulled it out of my pocket. The screen was cracked, but it powered on. The call log showed one outgoing number, dialed repeatedly over the past week. I stared at the digits. My breath caught. It was Linda's cell. I didn't understand. My wife, my son, a burner phone, motel rooms, cash in a storage unit. The connections twisted like barbed wire in my gut. I got up and walked to the truck. The gym bag was still in the back seat, where I'd left it the night I repoed the vehicle. I hadn't opened it yet. I'd told myself it was gym clothes, but I knew better. I reached for the zipper. My hand hovered over the metal tab. Then I heard a car pull into the driveway. Headlights swept across the garage door. I pulled my hand back and turned around. The engine idled for a long moment before cutting out. A door opened, then closed. Soft, careful, the way someone closes a door when they don't want to be heard. I stepped away from the truck and moved toward the side of the house, pressing myself against the shadow of the fence. Through the slats, I saw a figure approach the front door. Not Linda, not Ethan. A man in a dark jacket, his face hidden under a baseball cap. He didn't knock. He slid a key into the lock and let himself in. I waited, counting my breaths. The porch light stayed off. Through the living room window, I saw him cross the room, pull open a drawer in the console table, and remove something small. He pocketed it, then walked back out. He locked the door behind him, got into the car, and drove away without turning on his headlights until he reached the corner. I didn't follow. I didn't have time. I pulled out the burner phone again and dialed Linda's number from the call log. It rang 3 times, then went to voicemail. Her voice, cheerful and familiar. Leave a message. I hung up. I didn't know what to say. I went back to the truck. The gym bag was still there, waiting. I unzipped it this time. Inside, no gym clothes. Just a thick manila envelope sealed with tape. I tore it open. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them, all of the same thing. A warehouse on the west side, taken from different angles, different times of day. In one, a figure stood near the loading dock, face obscured. In another, a license plate was visible. I recognized it. It was mine. I shoved the photos back into the envelope and looked up at the empty house. The clock ticked on. The night pressed in around me. I had questions, but the only person who could answer them was gone. And the person I thought I knew best was the one I was starting to fear most. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the gym bag in my truck bed and heard Ethan's thin, scared voice on the phone. Linda was already asleep, or pretending. I couldn't tell anymore. At 4 a.m., I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching grey light creep through the window. My phone buzzed at 6:30. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at the Denny's on 38th, 7 a.m. Come alone. I put on my coat and grabbed my keys. Linda stood in the doorway. Where are you going? To get breakfast. Frank, I'll be back. She didn't stop me. Denny's was almost empty. I sat in a back booth. At 7:05, a man slid in across from me, maybe 50, grey hair, cheap suit. He smelled like cigarettes and coffee. You're Frank Miller. Who are you? Someone who wants to help your son. I set my coffee down. Why? Because I owe him a favor, and the people he's mixed up with don't care about favors. He showed me a photo. Ethan standing next to a black SUV, handing something to a man in a leather jacket. That was taken 3 days ago. That man works for a cartel out of Chicago. Your son owes them $42,000. He was using the truck to move product. I know. The man raised an eyebrow. Then you know you saved his life by taking it. I didn't answer. The cartel doesn't forgive debts. If your son can't pay, they'll come for him. Or you. Or his wife and kid. My stomach dropped. What do you want? Stay out of it. Let me handle it. Who the hell are you? He smiled. Cold. A friend of your son's. That's all you need to know. He dropped a $20 on the table and walked out. I drove straight to Ethan's house. His wife answered, eyes red, holding a toddler. He's not here. He left last night. Said he had to fix something. The living room was too clean, like someone had been packing. I'm sorry, I said. She shook her head. You don't get to be sorry. You took his truck. You took the only thing he had left. I turned and walked back to my car. When I got home, Linda was sitting in the living room, TV on with the sound off. Where's Ethan? I asked. He called, said he's leaving town. He'll call when it's safe. Safe from what? She didn't answer. I sat next to her. The clock ticked. I knew I couldn't stop whatever I'd started. That afternoon, I grabbed the spare key to Ethan's truck and drove to the storage unit. Inside the cab, I lifted the floor mat. Taped underneath was a burner phone. I turned it on. 3 missed calls, same number. I redialed. A woman answered. You Ethan's old man. Who is this? His sister. He left something in the truck, a black duffel under the passenger seat. If the cartel finds it, they'll come for you. Get rid of it. Why should I trust you? Because I don't want to see you dead. I checked the cab. The duffel was there. Inside, stacks of cash, maybe 20 grand, and a ledger with names and dollar amounts. Local business owners, county officials. I shoved it back under the seat and drove home in a cold sweat. Linda was waiting, arms crossed. You went to the truck, didn't you? I pulled out the burner phone. Ethan's sister called. There's evidence in the truck. A ledger of people he owes money to. Linda's face went white. What are you going to do? I'm not hiding from this. That night, I drove to the motel on the edge of town, room 14. A woman in her late 20s cracked the door. She had Ethan's eyes. You're the sister. Stepsister. She let me in. The room was cluttered with boxes. I'm leaving tonight. Ethan asked me to warn you. The cartel knows you have the ledger. Give it to the police, or give it to them. No third option. What about Ethan? He crossed the border this morning. He'll contact you when it's safe, but I wouldn't count on it. I touched the ledger in my coat pocket. I can't hand this over to killers. Then you need a plan. She handed me a key card. There's a safe deposit box at First Union Bank on 5th Street, under my name. Put the ledger there. Tell no one, not even Linda. Why should I trust you? Because I'm the only one who's been honest with you. Do it tonight, then disappear. I left the motel. On the drive home, I passed a black SUV parked down the block from my house. Same model from the photo. 2 men inside, watching my front door. I kept driving, hands shaking on the wheel. I pulled into a gas station 2 miles away and reached for my phone to call the police. A text came in from the unknown number. We know you're at the gas station. Drive to the warehouse on River Road. Now, come alone, or your wife dies. I looked up. The black SUV was pulling into the lot behind me. The black SUV sat at the edge of the lot, engine running. I didn't wait to see if they'd spotted me. I threw the truck into reverse and peeled out of the gas station, tires screaming. I took a hard right onto a side street, then another, then another. No headlights behind me. I drove for 10 minutes, circling blocks, watching my mirrors. Nothing. I pulled into a grocery store parking lot and sat there, breathing hard. The text was still on my phone. Come alone, or your wife dies. I called Linda. She picked up on the first ring. Frank, where are you? Home. Are you safe? Yes. Why wouldn't I be? Lock the doors. I'm coming. I drove home faster than I should have. The house was dark except for the kitchen light. I pulled into the driveway and killed the engine. The street was quiet. No black SUV. I went inside. Linda was sitting at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. She looked up at me with tired eyes. What happened? I didn't answer. I sat down across from her and put my phone on the table, screen up. Read it, I said. She picked it up. Her face went pale. She set it down slowly. Frank, I need to tell you something. Tell me. She took a long breath. Her hands were shaking. Ethan owes money, a lot of money. I've known for 6 months. I stared at her. You knew. He came to me. He was scared. He said he'd made a mistake. He begged me not to tell you. I felt something cold settle in my chest. How much? She looked down at the table. $42,000. The number hit me like a shovel. 42,000. The same number from the lawyer's file. The same number I saw in the storage unit. And you didn't tell me. Frank, he was terrified. He said if you found out, you'd cut him off. He said the people he owed would come after him. So you kept it from me. To protect him. To protect you. I pushed my chair back and stood up. Protect me. Linda, they just threatened to kill you. I know. Her voice broke. I thought I could handle it. I thought if I helped him pay it off slowly, they'd leave him alone. But it got worse. He started running things for them. Packages. I didn't ask what. I walked to the window and looked out at the dark street. The clock on the mantel ticked. Why didn't you tell me? Because you're dying, Frank. I turned around. She was crying now, tears running down her face. The copt. I found the papers in your desk, 6 months ago, the same day Ethan came to me. I didn't say anything. I just stood there. I knew you wouldn't tell him. You'd rather let him hate you than worry you. And I knew you'd do something drastic if you found out about the debt. I was trying to hold everything together. I walked back to the table and sat down. I took her hand. It was cold. Linda, I took the truck. I found a bag in it. I know what he's been doing. She looked at me. Then you know they're going to kill him. I know. She squeezed my hand. What do we do? I let go of her hand and pulled out the bag from my jacket pocket. I'd grabbed it before leaving the truck. Inside was a folded paper with an address scrawled in pencil. Miller Street Warehouse, I said. That's where they're keeping him. I'm going. No, her voice sharpened. You can't go alone. They'll kill you too. Then we go together. But first, I need you to call Ethan's burner. See if he answers. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone and dialed. The line rang 4 times. Voicemail. She shook her head. Dead end. I stood up and walked to the kitchen drawer, where I kept the old revolver. Loaded. 6 rounds. I tucked it into my waistband. We don't have much time. They know I have the bag. They'll come here. Linda grabbed my arm. Frank, wait. There's something else. The man who gave Ethan the debt. He's not just a collector. He's a local fixer. Name's Salazar. Ethan said he runs half the smuggling in the county. If Salazar's involved, this isn't about money. It's about silencing anyone who knows too much. That changed things. The bag in the truck wasn't just a delivery. It was evidence. Ethan had been running product for Salazar, and now they wanted to cut the loose end. Then we have to move now. I turned toward the door. Linda stood up, grabbed her keys. I'm coming with you. No, you stay here. Call the police. Frank, they know where we live. If they're coming here, I'm not safer alone. Before I could argue, I heard it. A car engine, low and steady, pulling into the driveway. I stood up and looked out the window. The black SUV was parked at the curb. 2 men got out. I sat in my truck for a long time after the black SUV pulled away. They didn't follow me. They just sat there, watching the house. I watched them back through the rearview mirror until my neck ached. Linda was inside, probably pacing. I couldn't go in yet. Not with that bag still in the garage. Not with the photographs burned into my memory. I needed to know everything. I drove the truck to a self-storage unit I'd rented years ago, back when I still did side jobs. Nobody knew about it. Not even Linda. I parked inside, pulled the roll-up door down, and turned on the single bulb overhead. The truck sat there, white and clean, like nothing was wrong. I started with the cab. Glove box, center console, door pockets. Nothing unusual. Registration, insurance card, a half-empty pack of gum. Then I checked under the seats. Front passenger side, nothing. Driver's side, a loose panel near the floorboard, just behind the pedals. I pushed on it. It gave way. Inside was a small compartment, maybe 6 inches deep. Wrapped in a black cloth was a stack of cash. 20s and 50s, held together with rubber bands. I counted it quickly. About $3,000. Underneath the cash was a burner phone. Cheap flip model, no fingerprints. I turned it on. The battery was half full. The call log showed only one number, saved as JC. No texts. No contacts. I put the phone in my pocket and reached deeper into the compartment. My fingers touched a leather-bound notebook. I pulled it out. It was a ledger, handwritten, dates, amounts, initials. The earliest entry was from 8 months ago. The most recent was 3 days ago. The amounts ranged from $500 to $4,000. The total on the last page was circled in red, $42,000. I sat back on my heels and stared at the numbers. This wasn't gambling debt. This was a record of transactions, deliveries. Ethan wasn't just a user or a borrower. He was working for them. The smell of dust and stale air filled my lungs. I closed the ledger and tucked it into my jacket. I had what I needed. Proof, evidence, enough to go to the police, enough to ruin my son for good, or enough to save him. The burner phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A text from JC. "Where is the truck?" I didn't answer. I turned the phone off and sat in the silence of the storage unit. The bulb above me flickered. The concrete walls held the cold. I thought about Ethan as a boy, the way he used to laugh when I pushed him on the swing set I built. The way he'd run to me with a scraped knee, trusting me to fix it. I didn't fix anything. I gave him a truck. I stood up and walked to the back of the unit. There was a steel cabinet I'd forgotten about. Inside were old tools, a box of nails, a rusted saw. I pushed them aside and found what I was looking for, a duffel bag I'd used for camping. Empty. I put the cash, the burner phone, and the ledger inside. Then I zipped it up and carried it to my truck. The drive home took 15 minutes. The black SUV was gone. Linda's car was still in the driveway. The house was dark except for the kitchen light. I parked on the street and sat for a moment, the duffel bag heavy on the passenger seat. My phone rang. Not the burner, my personal phone. The screen showed an unknown number. I answered. "Mr. Miller." A man's voice. Calm, polite. "We know you have the truck." I didn't say anything. "We also know you found the compartment. You have something that belongs to us. We want it back." My hand tightened on the phone. "Who is this?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is your son. He's safe for now. But if you don't return what you took by tomorrow night, he won't be." The line went dead. I sat in the dark, the phone still pressed to my ear. The duffel bag sat beside me, full of proof and danger. I had power now, the kind that could save a life or destroy one, and I had no idea which one I was going to choose. The dashboard clock read 11:47 p.m. I shoved the phone into my pocket and grabbed the duffel bag, hauling it into the house through the garage. Linda's footsteps creaked overhead, then stopped. I moved fast, unlocking the basement door and descending into the damp, unfinished space below. I found a loose floorboard near the furnace, pried it up with a crowbar, and slid the duffel inside. The cash, the phone, the ledger, all of it hidden beneath the house, where no one would look unless they knew exactly where to dig. I replaced the board and scattered dirt and cobwebs over it with my boot. Back upstairs, I poured a glass of water and stood at the kitchen sink, staring into the dark backyard. The fear was a cold knot in my chest, but beneath it something else stirred. Anger. At them. At myself. At Ethan for getting tangled in this mess without ever telling me. I walked to the hall closet and pulled out a cardboard box labeled taxes, old. Inside were invoices and receipts from my construction years. I dug to the bottom and found a .38 revolver I'd inherited from my father, wrapped in an oilcloth. The cylinder held 5 rounds. I checked them, then tucked the gun into the waistband of my jeans, at the small of my back. I had until tomorrow night. That was the only deadline that mattered. I grabbed my keys and headed back to the truck. I needed to find Ethan before they did, and there was only one place left to look: the old auto body shop on Grover Street, where he'd worked summers as a teenager. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. The auto body shop on Grover Street looked dead. No lights, no cars, just a chain-link fence with a rusted, closed sign. I pulled up to the gate and killed the engine. The revolver pressed against my back, cold and heavy. I got out. The cold air smelled like oil and rust. Gravel crunched under my boots. I walked around the side, past stacked tires, and found a door hanging open. The hinges were bent, kicked in. Inside, darkness. I heard breathing before I saw him. "Dad?" Ethan crouched behind a workbench. His face was swollen, one eye black. He was shaking, hands wrapped around his knees. "Get in the truck," I said. "They're looking for me." "I know." He stood, hands empty. "You took the bag. Tell me what it was." "A payment. I owed them $42,000. I was supposed to deliver it last night." "And now? They think I ran, that I stole it." I felt the revolver's weight. "You were going to get yourself killed." He laughed, dry and broken. "I was already dead. That truck was my collateral. When you took it, you took everything." I didn't answer. I just looked at him. My son. Bruised, scared, cornered. "Get in the truck." This time, he followed. We drove home in silence. The heater blew warm against my face. The GPS tracker sat on the dash, its blinking light showing the history, the warehouse, the late nights, the routes he'd taken. When we pulled into the driveway, Linda stood at the front door in her coat, ready to leave. She saw Ethan's face and her hand went to her mouth. Inside, Ethan sat at the kitchen table. I stood by the counter. Linda poured water and set it in front of him. He didn't touch it. "You have to tell the police," she said. "No," Ethan said. "They'll kill me." "They're going to kill you anyway." "Then I'll run." "Where?" I asked. "No money, no truck, no plan." He looked at me, the old anger back. "Whose fault is that?" The rage rose, the same from the dinner table. But before I could speak, Linda did. "Stop it," she said, her voice quiet but cutting. "Both of you." She looked at Ethan. "Your father is dying." The words hung. Ethan stared. "What?" "Copped. He's had it 2 years. I found the pills in his truck. The doctor gave him 5 years, maybe 8. He took your truck because he wanted you to stand on your own before he was gone." Ethan looked at me, his face shifting, anger gone, replaced by confusion, hurt. "Is that true?" I didn't answer. I just looked at Linda. She'd taken my secret, my control. "Is it true?" he asked again. Yes. He sat back, hands shaking. He looked at the gym bag on the floor, the truck keys on the counter, then at me. You took the truck to save me. I said nothing. You knew about the debt. I found out after. But you still took it. To keep you alive. He put his head in his hands, shoulders shaking. I hadn't seen him cry since he was a boy. They were going to kill me next week, he said, muffled. I was going to be killed. I walked over and put my hand on his shoulder. He didn't pull away. I know, I said. He looked up, eyes red. You saved my life. I took your truck. You saved my life. He shook his head. All those years of anger, and you were trying to help me the whole time. I was trying to teach you. Same thing. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there, feeling the weight of a lifetime of mistakes. Then headlights swept across the living room window. A car pulled into the driveway. Ethan stiffened. Linda grabbed my arm. I reached for the revolver. It's them, Ethan whispered. They tracked me. I moved to the window and peered through the blinds. A dark sedan idled, engine low. The driver's door opened. A broad-shouldered man with a shaved head and gold chain got out. He crossed his arms and waited. Who's that? Linda asked, voice trembling. Enforcer, Ethan said. Rico. He handles collections. I pulled the revolver from my waistband. Cold, familiar. How many? Just him. He works alone when it's personal. Rico took a step toward the front door, then another. He stopped at the bottom of the steps, tilted his head. Frank Delgado, he called out, calm, almost friendly. I know you're in there. I'm not here for trouble. I'm here to talk. I glanced at Ethan. He was pale. Don't open the door. Then what? I asked. Wait him out. We call the police, Linda said. No police, Ethan and I said at the same time. Rico lit a cigarette. The ember glowed orange. He took a long drag, exhaled smoke. You got my money, or do I have to come inside? I made a decision. I tucked the revolver into my jeans and walked to the door. Dad, don't, Ethan said. Stay here, I said. Both of you. I opened the door and stepped onto the porch. Cold air hit me. Rico looked me over, a faint smile on his lips. Mr. Delgado, I hear you're a mechanic. I fix things, I said. Good. Then you know how to fix a debt. He dropped the cigarette, crushed it with his boot. 42,000, plus interest. It's been a week. I don't have it. Then give me the boy. No. His smile faded. He reached into his jacket. My hand went to my back. But he pulled out a photograph and held it up. Ethan outside the warehouse, talking to someone I didn't recognize. Your son made a deal with a rival crew, Rico said. He was going to flip on us. That's why he didn't deliver the money. He was planning to run. I stared at the photo. The air left my lungs. That's a lie, I said. It's not. We have recordings. He was going to trade information for protection. The only reason he's still alive is we wanted to know who else was involved. I turned to look through the window. Ethan was watching me, his face unreadable. Your son isn't just in debt, Rico said. He's a traitor, and that changes everything. The revolver was heavy against my spine. I had a choice to make, and I had about 10 seconds to make it. I didn't sleep that night. At 3 a.m. I gave up and made coffee. The house was silent except for the furnace kicking on every 20 minutes. I sat at the kitchen table with the gym bag at my feet, staring at the wall. Around 4:30, headlights swept across the living room. A car pulled up to the curb and stopped, engine idling. I stood and walked to the window. A black SUV, tinted windows, no plates. 2 men got out. This time they didn't stand on the sidewalk. They walked straight to the front door. Heavy footsteps on the porch. A knock. 3 sharp raps. I didn't move. The knock came again, harder. I opened the door. The taller one smiled, cold and thin. Mr. Miller, we need the truck. And your son. I don't have either. The truck's in your name. Ethan's your blood. You've got 24 hours. Bring both to the River Road warehouse, or we come back for you. He pulled a card from his pocket and pressed it into my hand. Call this number when you're ready. They turned and walked back to the SUV. The engine revved, and they were gone. I stood in the doorway, the card shaking in my hand. The cold air bit my face. I closed the door and leaned against it. Linda came downstairs at 6. She looked at me, then at the bag. Did you sleep? No. You need to tell me what's going on. I told her. Everything. The GPS tracker, the warehouse, the gym bag, the phone call from JC, the $42,000, the men at the door. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat down across from me. We have to call the police, she said. They'll kill him. Frank, they're going to kill him anyway. I didn't have an answer. I just sat there, feeling the weight of the revolver against my lower back. At 7:15, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Miller. The voice was calm, polite. You have something that belongs to us. I don't know what you're talking about. The bag. The one your son left in the truck. I didn't respond. We'll make you a deal. Bring the bag to the warehouse on River Road. Tonight, 9 p.m. Come alone. Your son walks away clean. And if I don't, then we'll come to you. The line went dead. Linda was watching me. What did they say? I told her. She stood up and walked to the phone. What are you doing? Calling the police. Linda, if you go to that warehouse, you're not coming back. I looked at the bag. Then I looked at her. If I don't go, Ethan dies. She paused with her hand on the receiver. Her eyes were wet. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and picked up the bag. I'll be back before midnight. She didn't say anything. She just watched me walk out the door. The drive to River Road took 20 minutes. The warehouse was dark, surrounded by chain-link fence. A single light burned above the loading dock. I pulled in and killed the engine. The clock on the dash said 8:47. I sat there for a long time, holding the bag, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. I thought about the men at my door, the truck they wanted. I hadn't brought it. Maybe that was a mistake. But the bag was all I had. At exactly 9 p.m., the loading dock door slid open. A man stepped out. He was tall, thin, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. He smiled. Mr. Miller, right on time. I got out of the truck. Where's my son? Safe. For now. He gestured to the bag. Is that it? I held it up. Let me see him first. He nodded and pulled out a phone. A video call connected. Ethan was sitting in a chair, blindfolded, hands bound. Dad. I'm here, son. Dad, don't give them the bag. It's a trap. The screen went dark. The man smiled again. You have 3 seconds to decide. I looked at the bag. I looked at the man. Then I threw it at his feet. There, take it. He picked it up, unzipped it, checked the contents. Then he nodded. Good. Now get in your truck and drive home. Forget you ever saw this. What about my son? He'll be released in the morning. If you go to the police, we'll find him first. I turned and walked back to my truck. My hands were shaking so bad, I could barely grip the steering wheel. I drove home without looking back. But halfway there, I pulled over and called the number on the card. No answer. When I pulled into the driveway, Linda was standing on the porch. Her face was white. Frank. I did it. He's coming home in the morning. She shook her head. Frank, they called, 10 minutes ago. Who? JC. He said. She paused. He said the deal changed. I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean? She held up her phone. The screen showed a text message. The truck wasn't enough. We want the money, $42,000, by Friday, or we take both of them. I sat in the lawyer's parking lot until the sun came up. The gym bag was on the passenger seat, zipped tight. I hadn't opened it again. I didn't need to. Richard arrived at 7:30. He saw my truck and walked over, coffee in hand. He was 68, thin, with wire-rimmed glasses and a permanent look of concern. "Frank, it's early. I need to sell the truck." He blinked. "The one you just took back?" "Yes." He took a sip of coffee and studied me. "You want to sell a vehicle that's been used for criminal activity. That's not a simple transaction." "I know. And the money? I need 42,000, cash." He set the coffee on the hood of his car. "Let's go inside." We sat in his office. The walls were lined with law books and framed diplomas. Richard closed the blinds and sat across from me. "Frank, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Are you in danger?" I thought about the black car, the two men, Ethan's bruised face. "Not yet," I said. "But your son is." I nodded. He leaned back in his chair. "I can help you sell the truck. I know a dealer who buys vehicles without asking questions. But the money, where does it go? To pay a debt." "A debt to who?" I didn't answer. Richard sighed. "Frank, I've known you for 20 years. You're not a criminal. But you're about to act like one. That bag in your truck, I don't want to know what's in it. But I'm telling you, if you pay that debt, you're not ending this. You're buying time. That's all I need." He wrote down an address on a yellow sticky note. "Go see Tommy at Midwest Auto Sales. Tell him I sent you. He'll give you 45 for the truck. No questions." I took the note. "Thank you." "Frank," he paused. "Whatever this is, it doesn't end with the money. You know that, right?" I didn't answer. I just stood up and walked out. Midwest Auto Sales was a lot on the south side, surrounded by chain-link fence and faded flags. Tommy was a thick man with a shaved head and a gold tooth. He walked around the truck, kicked the tires, and nodded. 45, cash. Done. He counted the bills in his office. I signed the title. He handed me a manila envelope thick with hundreds. "Need a ride somewhere?" he asked. "No." I walked to a bus stop and sat on the bench. The envelope was heavy in my jacket. I pulled out the burner phone and dialed the number from the card. It rang once, twice. Then a voice, "Yes. I have the money. 42. Yes. Tonight, the warehouse on River Road, 10 o'clock, come alone." The line went dead. I sat there for a long time, watching cars pass. The sun was high now, but the air was still cold. I thought about Linda. I thought about Ethan. I thought about the truck I'd just sold, the same truck I'd bought 2 years ago, thinking it would bring my son closer. I pulled out my regular phone and called Linda. "Where are you?" she asked. "I'll be home soon." "Frank, what did you do?" "I fixed it." Silence. Then she said, "You sold the truck." I didn't answer. "That truck was yours," she said. "You earned it. You loved it." "It was just a truck." "No," she said. "It was the only thing you had left." I hung up. The words stayed with me all the way home. I got there at 5. Linda was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup. She didn't turn around when I walked in. "I have to go out tonight," I said. "Where?" "To pay the debt." She stopped stirring. "Frank, you're not a negotiator. You're not a fixer. You're a retired contractor with a bad back and a worse heart." "I know what I am." "Do you?" She turned to face me. "You're a man who just sold his only asset to save a son who doesn't even know you're dying." I didn't have an answer. She walked over and put her hand on my cheek. "Come back," she said. "That's all I ask." I nodded. Then I went upstairs and waited for 10 o'clock. The warehouse was dark. I parked on the street and walked in with the envelope. 2 men were waiting. One took the money, counted it, and nodded. "It's done," he said. "And my son?" "He'll be home tomorrow." I turned to leave, but the man spoke again. "Mr. Miller." I stopped. "The truck you sold. We bought it." I turned around. He was smiling. "We own it now, and we know where you live." I walked out without saying a word. The cold air hit me like a wall. I drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel. When I pulled into the driveway, Linda was standing on the porch. Her face was white. "Frank, I did it. He's coming home." She shook her head. "They called 10 minutes ago." "Who?" "JC. He said the deal changed." I felt my stomach drop. "What do you mean?" She held up her phone. The screen showed a text message. "The truck wasn't enough. We want the money. 42,000. By Friday. Or we take both of them." The park bench was cold through my jacket. November had settled into a grey, damp chill that seeped into your bones and stayed there. I watched the swings move back and forth, empty, waiting for someone to use them. Linda sat beside me, her hands tucked into her coat pockets. She hadn't said much since we parked. She didn't need to. Across the playground, a little boy in a blue jacket ran toward the slide. He was laughing. His father followed a few steps behind, hands in his pockets, eyes on the ground. My grandson. Ethan looked thinner than the last time I saw him. His shoulders were hunched, like he was carrying something heavy. He stopped at the bottom of the slide and looked up at his son, but he didn't smile. He just stood there, watching. The boy climbed to the top and waved. "Daddy, watch." Ethan nodded. "I'm watching." I felt Linda's hand on my arm. "Frank." "I know." She didn't say anything else. She just squeezed my arm and let go. The police had raided the warehouse on River Road 3 weeks ago. I'd made the call the same night the black SUV followed me to the gas station. I gave them the gym bag, the ledger, the burner phone, told them everything except Ethan's name. They found enough to shut down Salazar's operation. Arrests were made. The cartel moved on. Ethan was released after 2 days of questioning. He never knew who tipped them off. He never spoke to me again. I watched him now, standing at the base of the slide, arms crossed, jaw tight. He hadn't looked at me once since we sat down. He knew we were here. He just chose not to see us. The little boy came down the slide and ran toward the swings. Ethan followed, slowly, like he was walking through water. "Frank!" Linda's voice was soft. "We should go." "Not yet." She looked at me, her eyes wet. "He's not going to talk to you." "I know." I watched my grandson climb onto the swing. He pumped his legs, trying to get higher, but he was too small. Ethan reached out and gave him a push. The boy laughed, his voice carrying across the playground like a bell. That sound, I hadn't heard it in months. He pushed again. The boy went higher, his laughter turned into a shriek of joy. I closed my eyes and let it wash over me. When I opened them, Ethan was looking at me, just for a second. His face was hard, but there was something else underneath. Pain, confusion, maybe a question he would never ask. I held his gaze, then I nodded once. He turned away and pushed the swing again. Linda stood up. "Frank, please." I stood too. My knees ached. The cold had settled deep. We walked back to the car without saying anything. I opened the door for Linda, then got in and started the engine. I didn't head home. Instead, I took a left onto Oak Street and pulled into the clinic parking lot. The building was low and grey, with a sign that read "Pulmonary Specialists" in faded blue letters. I'd been putting off this appointment for weeks. The cough had gotten worse, the shortness of breath more frequent. Linda didn't know I'd scheduled it. Inside, the waiting room smelled of antiseptic and old magazines. I sat on a plastic chair and watched the second hand on the wall clock sweep past the 12, then the 1, then the 2. The nurse called my name 30 minutes later. Dr. Harmon was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a voice that never changed pitch. He didn't look up from my chart. "Frank, your lung function has dropped another 10% since last month. The spirometry confirms it's progressing faster than we expected." I nodded. I'd seen it coming. "At this rate, you'll need oxygen within 6 weeks, possibly a wheelchair sooner." He finally met my eyes. "I'd recommend you start planning for home care. I can refer you to hospice if—" "No." He paused. "Frank, I'm not saying it's imminent, but—" I said no. I stood up, the chair scraping against the linoleum. I'll manage. He handed me a prescription for a stronger inhaler and a referral slip I knew I'd never use. I took them both, folded them, and tucked them into my jacket pocket. I made it home 20 minutes later. The porch light was on. The mailbox needed painting. The grass was dead. Linda was in the kitchen making tea. She didn't look up. Where were you? I walked past her and stood at the living room window. The street was quiet. A few leaves skittered across the pavement. She came up behind me. Frank, I'm okay. No, you're not. Her voice was flat. I called the clinic. They said you were there. I didn't answer. She put her hand on my back. You could tell him about the Copd, about why you took the truck, about how much time you have left. He deserves to live. He deserves to know his father. She was crying now, silent tears running down her cheeks. I pulled her close and held her. Her shoulders shook against my chest. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For loving him enough to let him hate you. I didn't say anything. I just held her, feeling the weight of everything we'd lost and everything we'd saved. The clock on the mantel ticked. The second hand swept past the 12, then the 1, then the 2. I kissed the top of her head. If he hates me, he lives, I said. That's enough.